What is up? It is Florida Man Does Weather. We are here with a tropical update. We got some shenanigans possibly brewing close to home. It's going to be some Eastern Gulf, Southeastern United States coastal stuff, possibly. We'll see what happens right now. We're in the in between. We've got this mid-level spin off the east coast of Florida, and it is dry slotting pretty much everywhere along the from the coastal North Carolina, coastal South Carolina, down through the peninsula. But that is likely going to change today. We've got this big plume of storms blowing up in the eastern Gulf. We do believe this mid-level low is going to spin off and head east or northeast. And then we are going to be back in the moisture, getting our usual daily thunderstorms. But you see this large, long cold front that is making its way down to the Gulf. That's where the fun starts for us. So we've got at least one shortwave visible right now, right on the border of Louisiana and Mississippi. That's what you really want to watch for. Anything to give some little level of spin, a head start is what we're watching for. So this would be just a nice little low of vorticity if that were to be sitting over the Gulf today under this type of convection. That would be a good sign for development. But we've still got a couple days before this really works its way into really sitting across the Gulf. So we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna see what happens with it. Anything from you?
Yes, I was just going to say, so the shortwave that you see moving across Louisiana, Mississippi is kind of pulling away from Arkansas right now, that really tiny swirl. Like Caleb was saying, this is really what you're wanting to watch. Once this trough digs south and the front stalls out in North Florida and across the southeastern United States, there's going to be multiple of those shortwaves marching across the Gulf. That is why, as of this morning, the National Hurricane Center upgraded our chances of development from 20% to 30% because they're starting to see an increasing potential for one of these shortwaves to spin up in the Gulf. Uh, if you're in Florida and you look outside right now, it's really bright, blue, deep, not a cloud in the sky, and that's because that dry slot is being pulled in from the north due to that mid level low that's circulating just northeast of the Bahamas. But that moisture, like Caleb was saying, that lack of moisture is going to be modifying out quick because you can even see on the RGB loop here, it is starting to tilt out to the east. The only problem is we're just unfortunately in the wrong place at the wrong time. And, you know, the only dry slot in the area is literally covering the entire state. That being said, my personal opinion, I do think that this could help our potential for storms later on today because there's no clouds, which is allowing for super efficient heating. So once that moisture mixes in off of the Gulf, we could have a very interesting round of storms late this evening, late tonight. With that moisture content and the high heat value from baking, we can see some good lightning storms tonight. Um, any thoughts on that, Caleb?
Personally, you're the lightning photographer. I suck at that. So me personally, I want some daytime stuff. Let's get something that I can see, something that I can run into. Every time I try to do lightning photography, it just turns into me shaking the camera a tiny amount during an exposure shot, and then it just looks like a somebody turn on a flashlight and pointed it at me. So that's your lane. That is way, way out of my lane. I suck at that. I'm more of the drive into the downdraft, find hail, find strong winds. You're the one who takes pictures that should be in National Geographic magazines. I'm the guy who just destroys cars with hail. But yeah, it could get interesting depending on when this moisture slides in. Right now, it is being a little bit stubborn. You can see there is some increase in the mid-level moisture on the fringes of the dry slot, so that might help. But it's just it really might take all day with how our scutees were looking, which might as well pull that up and show it.
Yeah. What this may be while you're looking that up, this may be one of those days where you get half the state, the West Coast gets a lot of stuff late, and the East Coast stays high and dry.
Yeah, yeah. I if it goes like that, that's exactly what's going to happen.
I'm
So
not
let me pull
expecting
this
I'm not
twelve
expecting
Z.
to mix out of the entire state. Yeah.
It's hideous right now. This is hideous for storms. You have like the weakest possible lapse rates at the surface. Those are going to change though, because
Yeah.
right now the temperatures, well,
Inversion.
at 12Z it was chilly for summer, but eventually this is going to be way over here, looking at probably 89 to 90 degrees today. So those lapse rates are going to be good. And once you start seeing the cumulus field deepen out there, that's going to be your sign that we've hit good lapse rates from 0 to 3 kilometers. But this is the real concern. This is where all that drier air is. These little pockets right here. The moisture in the low levels is pretty nice. I mean, we're like pretty much tropical down in here, but these little pockets are what's gonna mess things up because it
Mhm.
creates these warm noses in your updraft layers. So you'll see it when a storm is going up, looks real good and crispy at the top, and then it frizzles out. That's when it's hitting one of those warm pockets, those drier layers. But no, that should mix out hopefully because we do want to see some storms. We still need the rain in Florida.
Yes.
We honestly could use a tropical storm. That would be quite nice, knock the drought right out, and hopefully lower the chances for fires because this guy had one pretty freaking close to his house. If you watch some of our latest videos, what did it get within a mile?
Yeah, it was about a mile from the house. I was literally up the road. Like the footage that I put on the channel today, um, I was sitting up the road watching it because I was trying to determine if I needed to evacuate my stuff out of my house and evacuate my mom and my nieces from my mom's house because it was literally right there and radio traffic with the fire department, they were basically saying like we can't stop it. It's going to come all the way to Highway 39, and I live on Highway 39. So I was sitting up the road trying to determine if um, we needed to evacuate. It was crazy because they called pretty much every brush truck and every tanker truck that they could release across the entire county. And if you know our county, it's a big county. So they were bringing in lighter trucks from Tampa. They even had a Quint truck, which is one of the foam trucks that has a boom on the front with a foam nozzle, trying to protect a house that was near the fire. They brought Hillsborough County, 2 helicopters from Hillsborough County, and a helicopter from Tampa PD. Couldn't say I've ever seen a Tampa police helicopter hauling a Bambi bucket, dropping water on a fire, but it did happen. It was really intense. Forestry had it rated at 1,200 acres, and that was it ballooned to that size in
Over
oh
like an
maybe
hour.
4 hours. I mean, it was fast. It was growing at a manic rate.
An hour, it was firmly out of control
Yeah,
because it started as a controlled burn on
yeah.
somebody's property.
We won't name the company that was involved, but yes,
They're big.
they're not very liked in the area.
hmm If you know, you know. We'll just leave it at that. They're
Yes.
known for sawgrass.
Mhm.
But so this is expected to modify today, and we'll move on to our tropical scenarios.
Yes.
So right now, I'm going to start it off with the Icon EPS combo. I kind of like the Icon. Sometimes it's getting better with.
Can we zoom that in a little bit?
I'll try. Let's see. Oh yeah, I don't know why it's on 80,
There we go.
but this looks much better. So we've kind of seen the icon be able to perform well sometimes. It kind of does better with um, weaker systems, which is a little weird, but if that's going to be the thing it's better at, I noticed that pattern at least last year. So we'll see if it holds. But starting out basically early today. going into Thursdays when things can really start to develop. So we have now this large trough and a cold front that is just going to kind of sit around in this area. And ideally, you want something to develop just southwest of Florida's Big Bend because that's going to give it uh, relatively lower land interaction potential and really the best opportunity to strengthen. The water in this section of the Gulf is just steamy right now. So anything that can kind of sit there, not really get bugged by the land, should be able to develop. There is going to be a little bit of shear associated with this. So anything that does get going is going to be probably pretty ugly. Maybe not as ugly as Tropical Storm Barry. That thing was almost an open wave by the time it made landfall, except for just this little core of pressure gradient that it had that was strong enough to generate 40 to 45 mile per hour winds. But we could be looking at something like that, except everything's on the east side of it. So we've run this forward a little bit. You start to see your ensembles pick up on some stuff. Some of it's over land, some of it's over the water. So these are 1014s, 1012s, 1013s. This is probably tropical depression, maybe even just a non-tropical low that's kind of got some hybrid features of a tropical low. But you want to see this on the west side of Florida because you got to think the rainfall, the precip is mostly going to be on the east side of whatever develops, and we really do need the rain. So we would
So
hope to see that.
yeah,
But
just
this
wanted
is
to add
4th of
something.
July, so 4th of
Sorry.
July might be rained out.
Yes. Just wanted to add something real quick here. So when a tropical system is developing, a tropical system, low pressure core, the low pressure core of a developing system will hop around a lot. That's why you
Mhm.
see on the icon here, it's got a low pressure up in South Alabama, low pressure down near Tampa, moves around because it's trying to simulate what actually does happen in a tropical, the infancy stage of a tropical system, which is the low pressure system can hop around as far as 600 miles as it's finding its way. Now, the question is going to be, and the reason why, if you look at the National Hurricane Center, they've got a really long area of potential development. The reason why they're saying that is because whichever body of water that low pressure center is ends up being at, whether it be offshore the east coast of Florida or offshore the west coast of Florida, whichever coast it's closest to, that's where the center is going to jump. Once that low pressure system starts forming, it's going to want to go back over water where there's less friction so it can continue its development. It will literally jump. So my thinking is if you get a low pressure core that starts developing, say, over Apalachicola, over Tallahassee, over southern Alabama, that whole center is going to jump south into the Gulf. And we're literally going to go from storms to, in about 3 or 4 hours, there's a rotating center over the Gulf. And wherever that roots, if it forms over eastern Georgia, it's going to jump offshore and form in the Gulf Stream. So
Mhm.
wherever that core forms, when it does that jump, that initial jump into the water, that is where everything is going to happen. That's why there's such a long, elongated area. And as you can see on the model, even they've got spots. You can see there's a cluster offshore of Tampa. Go back one spot, Caleb. One frame,
Mhm.
just one frame. So you see, you got a cluster off of Tampa. You've also got a cluster off of, say, Savannah, Brunswick, Georgia, because the model is torn on where that low pressure system is going to form and is trying to estimate where that center is going to jump. So that's why the National Hurricane Center has a blanket area, a big stretched area. It's not saying that whole area is going to form. That's not the track, if you will. A lot of people mistake that as the track. That's not what that is at all. That's just the development region. It's either going to form on the east coast of Florida, in the Gulf Stream, if it's closer to that whenever it starts consolidating, or it's going to jump off the west coast if it's closer to the Gulf, and it's going to jump off the west coast and start consolidating there.
Well said, well said. So I'm going to go ahead and play this through a little bit more. So once it does get going, it's gonna sit around for a little
Yeah.
bit. Like this weekend, wherever this sets up, be it west side of Florida, east side of Florida, that's gonna determine who's getting all this rain, who's getting just basically rained out for the weekend. And that's why we gotta watch how the strength is because when you end up if you end up with a low pressure like right outside of the Tampa Bay region and you just have this kind of constant push of wind into the bay, you could see some just light coastal flooding. Nothing too bad, but the other
Couple
day
feet.
when we had storms rolling in from the Gulf into basically the bay, it did push a little bit of a water rise into the Alafia River where I was at that time. And it was weird to see, the water was about 4 inches underneath the docks. And then these storms came through, the winds kicked up, and then they were over some of the docks. And we even had a dock come loose at one point. That was off of 40, 45 mile per hour wind gusts associated with an outflow boundary. So that ain't really a good sign. That shows me that some of the repairs that were done from last year were done really fast and in a bad way.
And something
So
else to think of, if we get a low that parks offshore and you get that constant long fetch of moisture and winds coming in off the Gulf, you're going to get, I mean, not only the rainfall totals are going to be extreme. One of our professors, Professor Nunley, posted something yesterday. The models are suggesting just offshore of Tampa up to 16 inches of rain this weekend. Like the models are going bananas right now. Now, that doesn't mean that's going to happen. But what I'm saying is, if you get a low pressure system that forms into a tropical system and just parks itself offshore, not only are you going to get that steady long fetch of 40, 45 mile an hour winds, which will pile the water up in the Gulf. And the way it works, the longer it sits there, the more water is going to get pushed in. So it's not going to be like a massive hurricane storm surge. You're just going to have a gradual rising of the water until there's water washing over the dock and in the backyard, kind of thing. Not extreme, but you could see, I would say, up to 3 feet of water just off of that funnel effect as the water gets pushed into the bay and is not allowed to come out. And obviously you've got the water draining in out of the rivers. It's gonna all get backed up. It's gonna be like a choke point. You got the water draining in off the mainland. You've got the water being pushed into the bay. It's gonna kind of just create this pancake effect in the bay, and the water will rise. Not extreme, but we've got some really low lying areas, and there's a lot of like you said, dock repairs that have been done that haven't been done too well, and there will be damage on that. But the main concern in Tampa is going to be flooding. There's going to be a lot of rain, and we know that in a summer thunderstorm, you all go into water. This could be a real
yeah.
problem this weekend. We get eight, a realistic 8 inches of rain, maybe not the 16 that the models are going bearish on, but I mean, you get 8 inches of rain, and you're going to be looking for a kayak, john boat, airboat, fill in the above, but there's going to be water rolling through Tampa.
So interesting enough, the GEFS ensemble, which is our American model ensemble, does show pretty much all of these lows in the Eastern Gulf. Some over Florida, which sometimes it does when it's detecting like sea
Yeah.
breeze formation, but with this is not really picking that up. So even
No.
if we get this a weak low, this would be a good rainmaker. Nothing really strong. This wouldn't allow much of a wind push. This would be really negligible, mainly just windy over the water, not much of a push into the bay, so to
Yeah.
say, really strong enough to do anything for you, but make larger waves and make your boating experience terrible. But who's going out on a boat in the pouring rain anyway, other than people who fish for a living?
Yeah.
So that could occur, and then it just kind of fizzles out. So this is, I think, picking up on more of a shear environment potential, because that will be the case. There is going to be some shear with this because this is a trough coming down and not just like fully tropical development. This would be more of a hybrid system that just doesn't get
Yeah.
strong enough, but it would be strong enough to create enough rain for the area. And then, just for curiosity's sake, we
While
will run the
while you're
Euro
bringing
2.
that up too, the challenge is with these as well. We can't rely on the tropical models for anything right now because we don't have an invest, we don't have an anchor point, and those models won't run until we get an anchor point. And with frontal systems like this, we don't get invests. We, you get an invest right before the spin starts, and so basically, wow, that one's just got it all strung out up the East Coast. Um,
But initially, the Euro, the Icon, and the GFS ensembles do have this real dense pocket off of the Big Bend coast, off of Tallahassee. So if that continues to be the case and it sags a little bit more down to here, this is kind of the sweet spot right in here where something could spin up really quick, thinking more on the lines of like a tropical storm Emily, a tropical storm Colin, just something real weak, disorganized, but potent enough. Potent enough to cause like heavy rains, even a tropical depression for our purposes could give us just enough low level shear for even some tropical cyclone tornadoes, maybe some mini supercell, something like that. So it bears watching for multiple reasons because this is the kind of low pressure system where you could see just water spouts rolling on shore that wouldn't last long, but are pretty easy to get to. So if we do have a setup like that, expects to get some footage of those because I work outside. Nobody wants to go outside in a tropical depression, let alone a tropical storm, no matter how much trash Florida people will talk about a tropical storm. You'll hear it. They'll be like, it's just a tropical storm, ain't nothing to worry about. But if it rains in the morning, most of y'all ain't going out anyway. So just bears watching. And it's curious that all three of these models do pinpoint this little zone initially, but the European does stretch it out quite a bit by the time the weekend gets here, and it really just weakens the entire area. So it's not the most favorable thing for development, but it is the first favorable area for development that we've seen this year. So it bears watching. Could be a good rainmaker, could cause some localized flooding wherever really heavy banding sets up, if that ends up being the scenario we get. But
yeah.
let's just go
And
and check.
it ultimately, just like I said, boils down to the where the core forms and the extent of the development. If we get a tropical storm that forms and it because the steering currents are so low, it just sits offshore. There is an opportunity. It's not big, but there is an opportunity that it could strengthen to a 50, 60 mile an hour system. If the flow is light enough and the shear is light enough, you can get somewhat of an extent of organization as it sits there for 2 or 3 days out in the Gulf. It's just there's so many unknowns right now because it's a massive if. The models don't have a good handle on it. We don't know where the short waves are going to be once the front makes it down. The front's already behind schedule as it is. There's just so many I don't knows. So it's just more of it's a wait and see right now. Confidence is low. The models are suggesting something's going to be out there, but the confidence is low. Regardless, it looks like we're going to get a ton of rain. I mean, it's looking like an absolute ton of rain is going to be making its way into the state over the next few days. But besides that, yeah, it's kind of a wait and see. Expect another video from us later on this week as we get a better handle on things, especially if something starts developing. You better believe we'll be on here giving you guys a chat.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Any closing thoughts from your end, Caleb?
I do just want to show this because it's eye candy.
Yeah.
Hurricane Flossie on the west side of Mexico.
Wow.
What a beauty. So right now, I believe this is at a category 1 strength, and this is really no threat to land. You're just getting outer bands on the west coast of Mexico.
Yeah.
But this has been the story so far this year. They're already on their F name storm in the Eastern Pacific. We are on the cusp of possibly seeing the C name storm, which is normal. We generally do start slower than they do, but at the same time, we are heading into MJO phase 8, which is one of the three phases that I like to see for Atlantic tropical development. Phase 8 generally will kind of allow a little bit more upper level divergence over the Western Caribbean. So that's going to be where I'm
Yes.
watching for towards the middle of the month, and
Yep.
that's what we did mention in our last tropical update video, that the middle of June, not June, July might become a little bit more favorable. But yeah, Flossie is just out there spinning around, looking real good. Let me get it on the other one so we can get the nighttime view too. But you got real deep convection out there. That is a nasty, nasty hurricane with a real tight core.
Very
Um,
rapidly intensifying hurricane right there.
yeah, that could get stronger. I do see a little bit of shear coming out of the northeast. Just really all the venting is going southwest. So that tells me there's just a little bit, probably a small upper level low pocketing up in this region and just blowing some winds down on it. But overall, that is a pretty look. That's kind of almost how Debbie looked right before it made landfall last year. So that's a nice sign. That's a good thing to see. Just like some eye candy, but this is no threat to land, just going to go way out into the ocean. Other than that, we will see you guys later this week. Maybe some storm footage coming later today as well.
Yes. Okay. All right, guys. See you around. Florida Man is out.
There you go.